Hi, I'm Debbie with Nixene Publishing, and for this interview today, we are going to be speaking with Steve Rodgers, founder and CTO of Emergentek, as well as being involved in SAMPE. And SAMPE of North America is sponsoring a Graphene Leadership Summit coming up in November. Welcome, Steve. Nice to see you today.
Good to see you, Debbie.
So what do you see as the most important, I would say the most important goal or the most important outcome that you'd like to see happen with the Graphene Leadership Summit?
There's been a lot of hype in the industry, and we talk about the historical acceptance. One of the things that kind of fights against the acceptance of a new material is when it gets overly hyped. And I will say that some press coverage is good because without it, investors don't know what you're talking about. But too much overly zealous press coverage can work in the opposite direction because people start to get inflated expectations. And those expectations are not, as you say, met instantly. There are a lot of people who are in the advanced materials business and who need to know about graphene because of the number of different things that graphene can potentially do for their products and businesses. It's difficult for them to get enough knowledge without really taking the deep dive into it to make an informed decision about where and how they might get involved with graphene. So the Leadership Summit is put together so that anybody who's interested in graphene will get a lot of valuable information out of it. All you need is an interest, and you will get a lot of good information. But the target group is really decision makers in companies. It's CEOs and CTOs and CFOs and directors of marketing and directors of engineering, R&D directors, those kinds of people who hear the word graphene and wonder, is that real or is it all hype? And should we be involved? Are we going to see some benefits from that? So we're trying to give really solid information. We've cut out the hype that you'll see in a lot of organizations and publications, and we're holding to what are the realities of doing business in this space. So the tutorial that I'll be giving the week before the actual summit kicks off will be very heavily oriented toward helping those kinds of leaders to understand those kinds of things. We'll start off in the first hour with what I call practical physics. And I do that because I gear it toward CFOs. It's physics for CFOs. I try to make it as understandable as possible. If you're a physicist, you might be driven a little crazy because I'm going to simplify it to the point where people who are not physicists and have no inclination to become a physicist can understand enough to know the importance of nanophysics in making a sound decision. We'll take that, we'll move into some applications where graphene is being used now. We'll talk about those a bit. And then we'll talk about the real hurdles in the second hour of commercialization. What is it that makes it difficult to commercialize this material? And we'll talk about each of those and we'll knock down those hurdles one at a time and address how we deal with them. And I think the best way to deal with any hurdle is straight on. So if you have a problem with hype, you talk truth. If you have a problem with fear, you talk responsibility. And always with a nanomaterial, there's going to be someone who comes along and says, it's all evil. All new things are evil, and we can't have this. And those people will try to shut down a really important field of science and engineering. So we need to look at those things. It's for those reasons that I've brought on people like Matthew Dahm, who is the head of nanotechnology for NIOSH, which is a division of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, to talk about the reality of graphene. Is it like carbon nanotubes? Is it like other nanomaterials? How hazardous is it? And how are we dealing with this? What kind of studies are we doing to try to bolster up the industry? When it comes to commercialization, we've got James Baker, University of Manchester, talking about all the efforts that they're doing there in commercialization. We have Ray Gibbs, who's the director of development for the GEEC, the Graphene Engineering Innovation Center at the University of Manchester, and what they're doing to try to build up the supply chain for commercialization. We'll have Zena Sinker, who used to be the executive director of the National Graphene Association, talking about the role of advanced materials in fighting off, of all things, a pandemic, and talking about her new group, the Advanced Material Pandemic and Future Preparedness Task Force. And how do we prepare ourselves for the possibility of another pandemic? Open the lines of communication, open up the history, open up um, multidisciplinary relationships so that when something hits, we can talk realistically about how the advanced materials communities, all of them combined, can jointly and corporately address the pandemic. So I think we've got some really exceptional speakers. We've got Rob Wilden is going to do his search of what's hot in industry right now. Where's industry actually doing their development effort? We've got Dexter Johnson, who's going to talk about the patent landscape globally. What countries are doing patents? Is it individuals? Is it corporations? Is it research institutions? And looking at an analysis of how all those things fit together. Bronwyn Fox will be joining us from Australia at the ungodly hour of 4:15 in the morning, so that the people in the Americas and Europe won't be inconvenienced on their time schedule. And she's going to be talking about graphene and carbon fiber composites and the automation of those processes. So we have a lot of really high level speakers, great content, and it's all geared toward informing decision makers and giving them the tools they need to make a real assessment of where they might play in this environment. And it's I think it's a great opportunity to do this, and I think the timing for this is also opportune, because I think the hype has hit the point where people are doing the make buy decisions for graphene and wondering about that, and so to be able to honestly and openly educate them on the reality of what's going on in the graphene space, I think is a great opportunity. Initially, this was intended to be a 2-day conference in Austin. And then when COVID hit, it transitioned to essentially 4 half days. So the first half day will be my tutorial, which will last about 2.5 hours or more with questions. And I'll honor the questions as long as they keep coming. That will be on Thursday, the 5th of November. Then the following week, on the 10th, 11th, and 12th of November, we will have the other 3 sessions. We'll have, at this point, we've got 15 or 16 speakers lined up. We've got 3 panel discussions. All of this is set up to be fairly convenient for time zones in the US and in Europe. In the US, it will begin at 7:00 a.m. in the Pacific time zone, and it will begin at 4 p.m. in Germany, in the CET time zone. So for people in Americas, Europe, Africa, and South America, it's pretty well timed to be able to participate. We'll run 4 to 5 speakers per day. We're going to run a fairly tight ship with terms of timing, because people may want to call in for specific presentations. But if they don't have opportunity for question and answer, that's why we've had the panel discussion at the end. The panel discussion at the end of each day will incorporate all of the speakers and give them an extended time for question and answer, as well as free-ranging discussion to be supplied by the attendees. One of the other things I'm doing is thematically tying my tutorial to the speakers. So when I'm discussing a topic in the tutorial, since there's so much to talk about, I can't always do a deep dive at that time. So I'll have a little deep dive symbol at the bottom of the page that says, for more information, go to session 7 on Wednesday, and you can hear a deep dive into this for a 30-minute presentation.
So this is a fee-based summit, correct? And it includes all of those sessions that you just mentioned, including the tutorial, right?
Correct. And it also includes 1-year membership in SAMPE, so you can get hooked into the SAMPE community. So all of that is included in the fee.
Well, we're certainly glad to be an industry partner with SAMPE for this event. And Steve, I appreciate your time. Thanks for talking with us today. And we'll see you at the Graphene Leadership Summit in November.